Hi guys, and welcome to another tactical video. Bit of a different one this time. I'm talking about dealing with flyers, and even though I've got some Sisters of Battle here, and I'm mainly talking from a Sisters of Battle perspective, this could apply to pretty much any army you can think of, so the same principles apply. Now, 6th edition's been out for a while. In fact, the rumours are that 7th edition is right around the corner. Whether they're true or not, we don't know at the moment. But basically, flyers have been around since the start of 6, and they began as a big problem for a lot of people. Now, not so much. Things seem to have evened out a bit, and the majority of flyers seem to have either been nerfed slightly, or other things have come out to deal with them, and as a result, the number of flyers on the table seems to have dropped off a lot. That said, some people still have problems dealing with them, and some armies have more problems than others in dealing with them, and also in fact that depending on your meta, fly heavy builds might exist out there, and a lot of people seem to get hung up on this fact that they may face flyers and what to do about flyers, so they automatically think about having some sort of skyfire, blah blah blah. So basically I'm just going to go through the basics and tell you how to deal with these, or how I like to deal with these kind of things. So, okay, the first thing to grasp is basically you need to exploit the weaknesses of someone who uses flyers, at the same time maximising your strengths. I'll go into more details about what those are in a second, but if you're new to the concept, or you're new to 40k or whatever, or you really don't know where to start to deal with flyers, okay, just play along with this, right? Bit of role play. So imagine you are tasked with retrieving some kind of artifact for the Emperor, okay? Some holy relic or something, okay? And you are just a normal guardsman. All you've got is some flak armor, blah blah blah, okay? And you manage to get to wherever this relic is, and there it is upon the table, right in front of you. But guarding it is a demon prince, who would absolutely kill you, okay? Now he's big and he's slow, and as a result, he's going to struggle to hurt you. Now, are you going to kill the demon prince, okay, and then take it, or are you going to take it? Either way, your objective remains the same. You have to get the relic. And obviously, if you don't stand a chance of fighting the big demon prince, then why would you even attempt to, when you can still complete the mission without fighting him? And this is the principle that you need to know and need to understand if you are dealing with flyers, okay? You don't have to take them down. You don't have to do anything. You just have to deal with the objectives of the mission and you will win. So let's go back to the specifics then. So I mentioned before that you need to exploit weaknesses. So what this is all flyers, any list with flyers involved, have a weakness. Now first off is the obvious. They have spent points on introducing flyers into their list, so that's points I don't have on the table turn 1. So for every fly they have less of a table presence at the start. Now if you are going first, then that means you are getting 2 movement phases, 2 shooting phases, and potentially 2 assault phases before the flyers even arrive at the earliest. And because of the way reserves work, then they might not arrive that soon. So that means you actually have quite a lot you can do. Now even if you're going second, then you still have a much bigger table presence, and you're still getting at least 1 movement phase, 1 shooting phase, excuse me, and 1 assault phase before any of the flyers arrive. So basically that is a weakness of the flyers, because they cannot affect what's happening on the table on turn 1, and for every flyer they have in reserve there is less stuff on the table, which means you can really exploit that. So to exploit that, you actually need to make use of speed and maneuverability. You must have speed and maneuverability in your list. Now this goes for any list, it doesn't matter if there's flyers there or not. Okay, how quickly can you move your units around to where they need to be? How quickly can they get in and do their job? You don't necessarily have to do these things quickly, but you need the option of being able to do this. So if you're not building your lists with this capability, then you really need to find a way of getting it in there, because otherwise you are going to struggle, not just against flyer lists. So obvious ways of doing this are dedicated transports, rhinos, immolators, that kind of thing. Sisters of Battle specifically have Seraphim as well. They have Dominions with Scout. So anything that moves you around quicker is good. So bear that in mind. For speed is the key thing, okay, because it means you can attack quickly, and hopefully, things being right, and you know, if you go for the right targets and things, you're going to cripple your opponent's army before the flyers arrive, and at that point it's already too late for them, or they're fighting an extremely uphill battle. And of course, the more points they have off the table, the easier this is for you to do. So the next thing is positioning. So when a flyer arrives, you know what table side it's coming from. It's always the same. Well, there's a few exceptions, but generally speaking. So you know it's going to come from their table edge. You know it has to move at least 18 inches. So depending on the flyer it is, if you're beyond that 18-inch threshold, it might not be able to shoot you at all. And if it does, then it's going to have to severely alter the way it comes in, and as a result it's going to be out of position for the later game. So you know, you are actually benefiting more from doing that. So that's one thing. Other thing is positioning, of course, in terrain. You can use terrain to get out of line of sight. You can put yourself under ceilings and that kind of things on lower levels of floors against anything that has template blasts, barrage. Bear in mind that the rules as they are mean that flyer templates, i.e. Helldrake flame templates, cannot actually hit the top level of a ruin, because only fast skimmers and skimmers can do that, as it currently is. So you could actually exploit that. So there's that kind of things. Line of sight should... Right. One of the biggest issues I find with people who are struggling in playing 40k is that they're basically not playing with enough terrain. And if you follow the rules for random terrain generation in the rulebook, you'll see there's actually quite a lot of terrain that's supposed to be on the board, and that is what's in there. Now, even if you make your own terrain setup, which most people do, you should have more or less a similar amount of terrain. If you have like 3 buildings on the board and that's it, then you really are not playing the game as it's designed, and of course you're going to suffer. And this is also ties into problems with assaults and assault units and versus shooting that a lot of people have. It's basically because there just isn't enough terrain on the board. So if you have a decent amount of terrain, then suddenly flyers have a much harder time dealing with you. Now, of course, it's awkward for them to put their models on as well, so it makes where they can actually land their base a lot more restricted, so they struggle a lot more to get targets of opportunity. So remember positioning, remember speed and maneuverability. Okay. The next thing is spacing, and this is basically only applies to any kind of template, or flame template or blast template. Make sure you use spacing correctly. So you want to be like the full 2 inches, and 2 inches is a long way. I mean, that's 2 inches. That is 2 inches, and look at the distance there. Okay, you do that, and a single blast template should only ever hit 1 model. A flame template, depending on the angle, will really struggle to get more than a few models. And of course, if it's Helldrake Flamer, then Sisters of Battle already have a slight advantage there in the fact that Strength 6 does pretty much nothing extra than strength 5, and also the all get an invulnerable save. So you're still getting a save even against even a Helldrake. So that's nice. So yeah, spacing, very important. Basic tactics applied to everything, but we're covering all the stuff here. The last thing is basically multiple targets. So you could go for multiple small squads, which if they die, then they haven't killed that much. You can only shoot one thing, remember. The other thing is put them in transports, protect them more, and if the transport gets popped, which obviously you make as difficult as possible, then you've survived another turn of shooting. And there's only a certain number of turns in a game of 40k, and remember the flyers have only come on at turn 2 at the earliest. So even if they kill a transport on the turn they arrive, then turn 3 you're still there and they have to kill you again. So by turn 4 they've killed one unit, and by then they're probably way out of position or having to go off the board, blah blah blah, and the game's pretty much over. So exploit that, exploit their weaknesses. So again, going into the fact that they're going to be here at the second turn at the earliest, okay. There are actually ways built into the game, as a lot of characters give you, that manipulate the reserves roll of your opponent, and also your own, of course. So you could do this with locator beacons as an upgrade for fortifications. You can do this with certain character special rules. There's also quite some good warlord traits in the main rulebook, which also help this and modify your opponent's reserves rolls. And this will drive them nuts because they need those flies to come on, and they won't be coming on. So every turn it's off is a huge blow for someone who relies on flyers, or even if it's just one flyer. It's a third amount of points to not have come on the table, and the longer they're off, the less effective they're going to be by the time they come on. So that is a huge weakness. The final weakness is assault. They obviously cannot attack units locked in assault, so if you know the flyer's coming on, get stuck in. Now Space Marines, this could be bad for you, blah blah blah. But again, from the perspective of sisters, if you build them with priests in the units and that kind of thing, and you've got like assault focused units to back them up, then you want to be in the assault anyway, so this benefits you. Excuse me. So worth thinking about. Sorry about the camera. So yeah, basically all those are weaknesses. Now this is very basic stuff for a lot of people. It's basic principles of Warhammer 40k, but the trick to using it against flies is the fact that they have such a finite amount of time on the board, and they only have a narrow corridor in which they can affect the game, and all you need to do is make that corridor as narrow as possible, just go blip like that, and suddenly their effect is going to be extremely minimal, if any at all. So that is how you deal with flies, you exploit their weaknesses. Now the other part is to maximise your own strengths. So what I mean by this is, first off, get the most out of every unit. Now whether this is the positioning, as I mentioned, using every weapon you have available, using grenades, that kind of thing, always remember to exploit the terrain to the best of your advantage, and your own special rules. But remember that you should also use things like the objectives, mysterious objectives, because there's a 1 in 6 chance that you are going to get the Skyfire objective, and that can be very nice when coupled with melters and that kind of thing. So, lots of benefits there. The other thing is to make sure you play your game, and this is a key factor in any kind of 40k army or game, but especially so with dealing with flies, especially fly spam. Okay, what I mean by play your game is this, right? You build your army, and you want your own battle plan, okay? Which is a specific idea or notion that you are going for with your army. It's what they're going to do on the table right from the start of the game. Okay, and basically everything you do in that game should be to enact that battle plan. So every little movement of a unit, everything you shoot at should be to make that battle plan work. Now for every time your opponent has a flyer and they're not on the board turn 1, then that's one less thing to stop your battle plan. Okay. And what that means is you, for example, if you're in a 1500 point game and they've brought like 300 points of flyers, then there you go, that's 300 points more you have on the table potentially to deal with them. And if you can crush them with that extra 300 points and leverage it enough to benefit you, then suddenly they are in serious trouble. And there you go. Now obviously if they're smart, they're going to try and stop this, but this is where battle plans come in. You stick to your battle plan, and then basically it means you're going to do just fine against flyers because you are sticking to your plan, you're enacting it, whatever, and basically they're giving themselves a handicap on the first 2 turns. Okay? You're going to do fine against armies without flyers because you have your battle plan still, you know, and you haven't wasted any points on skyfire or like a token flyer of your own. And this is a big problem. People build their lists in like, well, I need something to do with flyers, so I'm going to buy a Fortress of Redemption or a Bastion or Aegis Defense Line with Cork Gun. Okay, and that's a lot of points to just lay out there. That's like 100 points for the Aegis line. Okay, just to get a single gun that can shoot at flies. And you know, if they're running fly spam, what good is that going to do? Okay, what good is it going to do to have that if you are building an army that needs to be moving forward, short range, like Sisters of Battle? That's not going to help you at all. It's going to be token at best. Now, if you are using the fortifications to supplement parts of your army, like for example, heavy bolter retributors hiding behind some kind of cover, and you want that cover at all times, then yes, an Aegis defense line is a valuable upgrade. But then you are taking it to support your army and not as the be-all end-all in Skyfire. And this is the key. I mean, if you take something that has Skyfire and it's only one thing, it's going to be incredibly hard to make that work against one flyer. Against several flyers that your enemy has. If they have one flyer, then okay, it may do okay, but then you are reacting to them, and you're reacting to something that's going to come on turn 2 at the earliest, and possibly much later. Okay, and this is where all-comers lists tend to fall down, because you're building for these things and you're spreading yourself too thin, and then you won't achieve your objectives. And then someone who comes with a specified goal, units built to make sure that goal is achieved, are just going to crush you because you don't have the stuff to deal with them. And this is basically it. As soon as you start factoring in Skyfire as a must-take, then you are going to really struggle in dealing with everything else. And so basically what you can take away from this is that if you want to deal with flyers, you do not need Skyfire. You can just play to your own strengths, exploit their weaknesses and maximise your strengths, and that is it basically. You do that, I guarantee you will have a lot of success against even extremely flyer heavy builds, as well as success against every other build out there. So yep, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video is useful for you. If you liked it, then remember to click the like button. Leave a comment, ask me any questions. I will try and get back as quickly as possible, and thanks for watching.